Okay, I will now open the Estacada Urban Renewal Agency meeting. So can we please have roll call, please?
Yes, Director Hughes,
Here.
Director McElroy,
Here.
Director Metcalf,
Here.
Director Prokop, here, Director Strobel,
Here.
Director Tenbush,
Here.
and Chair Jinkwine.
Here, thank you very much for that. We are now at the first citizen and community group comment. I have none in front of me. Are there any online or anything they wish to speak? No? Okay, now we're at the consent agenda. All of you have had a chance to read that over. Can I have a motion on the floor, please?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
First and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much for that. Now, before we get into agency business, the very thing you're going to be talking about tonight, my wife's company was named in this, so I have to recuse myself from the vote in order to stay legal. So just so we're all on the same page. So I will be leading the meeting, but I won't be able to vote in the final on this. So I will hand this over
Okay.
to Melanie.
Yes, thank you, everybody. We have received an application and Elena is online too if she wants to weigh in on anything or answer any questions. This is a little bit hot. Thank you. So Paramedic is requesting funds to update a building on Broadway Street, and you have the application that she filled out in your packet. Paris is here with us this evening. I think we'll have her come up to the table here and let's see, there's some options given in the staff report. The one concern that you probably would want to dig into a little bit is that part of the funding was to go towards the purchase of the building. And so we haven't done that previously. It is listed as it's listed as an allowable use in the grant application to assist with the purchase of property for development or redevelopment. But one of the requirements is also that it raises the assessed value. And so I think the intent of the allowing that was perhaps for larger development projects, but that would be up to an interpretation of the board. So I thought if you want to, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think Peter wants to speak on it.
And then if you want to ask Paris or have her talk about her proposal, she's here to do that.
Yeah, so I actually am the one that flagged this issue. The way that I would interpret it, that and the way that I've seen it used in other jurisdictions is that city funds can be used if it then increases the assessed value of the building. So under the Oregon Constitution, the value of buildings are fixed in time and then are limited to a 3% increase per year which is why sometimes you have like a complete disconnect between the real market value and an assessed value for a building. If there's remodel that comes in at a certain level, like it increases the size of the building, then at that point, the building's reassessed and it will come in at its, closer to or at its real market value. Part of the purpose of urban renewal is to remove blight and to redevelop areas. And when those areas redevelop, then it increases the assessed value. So that's why we have the frozen tax base. And then the idea is like if a vacant lot becomes a building, that's bringing a much higher assessed value. So in looking at this, these are all cosmetic changes to the building. And so it wouldn't cause the building to be reassessed. And the property tax would not increase. So when I had looked at that, this, I didn't think that it complied with that first requirement. And then I'll borrow from Elaine Howard because she uses the same examples every time. Like an example would be the brewery in Astoria was a kind of a derelict brick warehouse. And so and I'm blanking on the name of the beer. It's probably Astoria's most famous beer. But it's not Bowie, it's the other one. Anyway, so when they came in and the city invested, and then because that turned into a brewery, it got reassessed. And then there was a lot more increment going into their urban renewal area. So that's where I've seen adaptive reuses of buildings that would qualify for this kind of program. Ultimately, you're responsible for interpreting your code. So if you were to interpret your code in a way that didn't require that, you could. It would set the precedent so that the city was contributing to the cost, essentially creating the down payment for buildings that the city didn't own. So that's another consideration, I would think.
Okay, any questions? Jonathan?
Yeah, so Peter, I was originally, when I looked at this, I was under the same guise as you. Originally, I was a little caught off, full transparency, like, okay, are we going to be in a position where we're essentially helping acquire an asset? But today I dug into this more. And the language that I read says that they can use the money to help acquire the property. And it also goes as far as stating, well, let me back up. So it does say that they can also, and then on the assessed value thing, I think that I did some research on their BJJ club, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I believe is what you guys are, right? And their association is with another company that is renowned, right? They're one of the top dogs in UFC. They're one of the top dogs in in Muay Thai, all sorts of things, all sorts of competitive sports. So they are attracting a lot of attention right now. So who they're associated with also would drive traffic, which I think you could make an argument, therefore, that it would increase downtown potentially then. My only concern is I'd like to see what renovations would be. And my question for you would be, my understanding is with or without the grant, you could afford the lease. The grant is just helping you to be able to make repairs to increase the building, correct? Yes.
Am I on? There we go. Perfect. Thanks. So as a part of this, thank you. I appreciate. I also spent a lot of time. I watched every video over the last 2 years. It looks like post the last 2 years, there was no video of the urban renewal interviews, but I read all the meeting minutes for every thing I could get a hold of, from high school pharmacy to James and Hannah in that building and level 11. And my interpretation is similar, and that this would be an appropriate use. I spent a lot of time thinking about myself in your shoes and whether or not it's a logical decision for Estacada holistically. My family's from Estacada. We love Estacada. We run and operate 3 businesses here. It has to logically make sense for the community, or the business isn't sustainable. Last September, we opened and we thought we had a good idea. We were like, okay, this is going to be a good idea. Or in a year from now, it won't be a good idea. So we signed a lease with our current building. And it was, I don't know, like a leap of faith and a lot of prayer. And a year later, we have absolutely no space for anyone else in our building at any time. If you drop by any of our classes, they're full to the brim. I can't fit more parents. I can't fit more siblings. I can't fit more kids. So as far as volume goes, like, there was a need that is now currently being filled. We are contributing $125,000 cash for the down payment of this building. This building needs more than $100,000 renovation. I wish that that wasn't the case, but it does. I am refinancing my house and using a cash out equity to purchase this building. So there is literally nobody more invested in the positive outcome of this than me and my family. So much so that I bet my house on it. So I do think that after reading the requirements and spending a lot of time researching, I do think that what we're asking is, it aligns with the Urban Renewal Agency outline, and it makes sense logically when I think about the program sunsetting in 2026 and the amount of funds left currently available and the buildings that are available to receive the funds, and which building owners would potentially be interested in that, and making sure that we're maximizing the potential in the Broadway Main Street area. Like, it logically, to me, makes sense across the board.
Okay.
Also, has anybody recently walked by just in video?
All right, Mike, did you have a question first before I hand it over to Jerry?
No, go, Jerry can go first.
So one of the questions that Jonathan asked towards the end was, without this $75,000, are you guys still going to move forward with this project? If that's the decision that's made tonight?
Yes,
Okay.
likely, yes. Not easily and not with additional funds to make continuous repairs. But the way that the urban renewal grant is written is that I have to purchase the building and then be reimbursed. So there's no way, my understanding after, reading it again, up to my interpretation, is that there actually is no way for me to purchase the building without fronting the money and then asking for reimbursement. So the answer is yes, that I have to.
So when I saw this, my concern, I didn't have any concern with you guys moving into the building. My concern was if you didn't do it, the empty building that we would have, we already had a huge problem with a perfectly good building being empty for a very, 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 very long time. And I don't want to see that again in downtown Estacada. So that was my concern, my biggest concern. The first thought is, if they don't do this, how long is that building going to stay empty? Because people aren't going to want to come in and do those renovations. So, yeah, that's just it. Thank you. Sorry. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike?
You said you have $100,000 in repairs you're gonna do?
Probably more, but that's where we hope to start.
Is that at the front end? Like as before you move into the space, those are gonna be completed?
No. So there's a two-part to this grant application. I put down $125,000 as a part of the purchase. I'm reimbursed $75,000. Then I also put in $50,000 worth of repairs to be done in the first 30 days that we own the building. Our lease is up September 1st. We close on the building August 1st, or maybe 1 or 2 days early because of a technicality. And so in that time window, that 31, 32 days, a lot of the renovations that are listed will take place, or we're going to work like heck to try and get it to happen. And then I lose my current space. I've already relinquished I've already given up my space. There's a big for lease sign on my current space. So we relinquish our current building and we move into the current space, the new space, the Justin Video space, 381.
Okay, Heidi, and then Jerry, you wanted to go again? Oh, okay.
So you said there's about $300,000 in repairs that need to be done. Will there be any immediate safety concerns while the business is operating?
So the biggest safety concern, in my opinion, I included in your packets, which is the large propane tank in the alley, which is grandfathered in, but it shouldn't be there, right? Like, it's not up to code, and it's a safety concern for all neighboring businesses. Not only is it a little bit of an eyesore, if I can say that, but if somebody hits the propane tank because it's in an alley where cars drive all day long, that is the number one safety concern for us that we would like to remove, and it will be removed before we operate. It will also take out the propane heat source that's in there currently, which is also from 1940 and needs to be updated for the safety of participants. Beyond that, we do have a plan to mitigate any safety concerns that we've discovered so far. And I've already done a preliminary walkthrough with Skylar from Northwest Code Pros to go through what the code requirements would be. And I've talked to Sarah a little bit at the fire department on, what their expectations are for a changeover. And it did pass for the fire department recently. They just did their checks in February. So, technically, currently, it, meets a minimum standard, although we'd like to take that and improve it drastically.
Okay, Jerry?
What are your guys' plans for parking? So you have 145 members. I'm sure it's kind of tight right now, so.
It is tight right
Yeah.
now in all of downtown Estacada, but I did see that you guys are hoping to acquire a potential parking lot this year with some city funds, which would be super cool. So I asked them to keep the sales agreement private along with my bank statements, just surely feels like something I should ask. But in that sales agreement, you will see that the building is 2 tax lots. the parking lot attached to it in the back is also 2 tax lots. And while the current owners currently are not willing to sell the parking lot, my family has first right of refusal for when it sells. So when the time comes, whenever that may be, whenever they're ready, we have first right of refusal on it. And our hope would be to eventually purchase that parking lot. In the meantime, I mean, we already take up the space. Like we're already operating, we're already doing it. We use the streets, and the Grind is really kind because they close right when we open. And so they allow us to park in their parking lot. The food carts, while we won't own the parking lot that the food carts are on, they've graciously allowed us to use some of their parking. So we've talked to our neighboring businesses, and collectively, we feel like it makes sense. And like I said, we're already doing it, so it's not great, but no different than the dance studio.
All right, more questions over here, Jonathan?
Just for more ease of mind here. And again, I love your excitement about this. And I also love that you guys are taking a leap of faith here and going all in on the community to expand and offer more resources to the kids, right? That's a big thing for this entire council. So, but part of it was below property market value. Now, with it being 2 tax lots, I would assume that that gives you guys some more breathing room for that as well, right? Like you're acquiring this at fair market value below.
Below, I mean, the building is the same square footage as the building that was referenced earlier. I don't know the address, but the one that's been sitting vacant forever, the old Art Smith building that's, I think, in contract to be rented to the school district, is the same square footage. And that building was listed originally for $650 and eventually sold for $525. And we are substantially below that. So at the same square footage, I mean, you can add, 4 points for that building being in better shape, minus 2 points for the tax line, I don't know, something in there.
One question for Peter. I just want clarity on some. Is it that it's okay to use it for acquiring the property, or is it not that if it's not improving the tax rolls that it's not okay?
Well, we're essentially providing them with equity in the building. I mean, they're buying a building, it's not going to increase in assessed value for taxation. And then we're reimbursing $75,000 of their purchase fees. So that's just not how I've seen it used in the past. I've seen it where the most recent one, it was in another jurisdiction. It was a dentist that was building out their clinic. And because of inflation, her cost had gone up $200,000. And so she had put in a $50,000 grant. And it was just going to take her, she said she'd need a couple more years to do the project if she didn't get, because she's just stretched too thin. So then the other thing that I've seen is, yeah, I mean, I honestly can't think of one where we were returning equity to, or we were essentially creating, the city was creating the down payment. And your code's kind of ambiguous, so.
Second question is for you, is where I'm trying to get with it. I love what you guys are doing. I'm excited about it. I'm all in for it. I love it. I'm just wondering if we can restructure it where the money that you're getting from the grant is going towards the repairs of the building that doesn't have the condition that it's improving the tax base for the city. If that would be, is there some benefit? Like,
So the
why did you
reason,
do 75-25 instead of all of the repairs and a lesser number for the repayment?
yeah, so I think about it if we don't get the grant at all. If I don't get the grant at all, we put the down payment on the building and now I own a lovely giant hunk of junk in downtown Escada, right? Like it needs more repairs than I can do. My mom and dad and my husband and I, rent some big ladders. We try and paint it. It takes forever. We work our booties off, but I don't have any money. Like that's all the money, which, Elena can tell you by my bank statements, like we're putting all of our cards on the table, right? Like that's all the cash that we can come up with for a down payment. So the issue is that I cannot make the repairs needed to the building professionally in a way that I feel represents Estacado well and the space well. I mean, it's a great building. Like it's a great location. It's a great building. It has tons of window frontage. Like it has the potential to be so great. But I can't do it well on my own. And that's why I'm here today asking for help.
I mean,
So,
if you got $100,000 for the repairs and nothing for the property purchase.
well, I can't front $200,000 and then get $100,000
Because of
reimbursement.
reimbursement.
Exactly.
Understood.
It's
I know it hurts.
reimbursement, and it's 50-50.
Yeah.
It's set up
Gotcha.
to be 50-50 unless you wanted to.
I just thought if there was $300,000 total repairs, I thought it'd be still just a third, but
Well,
it has to
well,
be matching. Got it?
yeah, it has to be matching. And our long-term plans for the building, I mean, we've got all kinds of ideas that we'd love to see come to life. I mean, that building has the potential maybe one day to be 2 stories, but I included some photos of upstairs. I hope you had the opportunity to review them. That's not going to be an easy task. So the reason I structured it in this way is because it literally maximizes all of the financial means that I have currently to dedicate toward this project and stay afloat as a business and as a homeowner and as a, as a citizen, right? Like, I don't want to have to move to somewhere in the Midwest where it's cheaper to live because we, spent all of our money irresponsibly, right? We're trying to be good stewards of our family, good stewards of the city. And again, because I spent a tremendous amount of time reading this back and forward and meeting with Melanie and Elena and other grant recipients and their understanding of the way that it's written, to Peter's point, it's up for you guys to interpret it how you want to interpret it. And I understand it sets a precedence, but it's also sunsetting. So, there's only so many businesses currently eligible to try and maximize the space and make downtown great in the next year and a half that we have left.
I was just gonna say it's sunsetting, but we're hoping to get another one rolling here as well too. Yes,
Hope
fingers
so.
crossed. How do we know? How do we define if it's going to increase the accessible value? Because to me, it seems like we're creating the potential to increase the internal space of the building as well too, from 1 story to 2 story. That would have to be factored in. I would think uneducated have to.
Right. I think one of the things that gave me pause is, so, I mean, let's assume that 425 is a fair price or maybe even a good price. We invest 75 and then reimburse 25. So 100,000 has been paid in. And then if the property owners were to sell the building for 425,000 or maybe 440 because they had put in 25,000, then it's not like the frozen yogurt where the city owned it and then, we got the money back that we reinvested. That this literally is equity for the owner. If it were $100,000 being spent on improvements to the building, I mean, those would stay with the building. So, and again, I think I view this as ambiguously written. Elena certainly believed that this qualified. I was the one that was like, wait a second. I think that the whole purpose of urban renewal is to increase the assessed value of the buildings in the zone. And then all the special districts that didn't receive their property tax funds during that time, like the fire district, when it gets returned to the rolls, then it's at that higher assessed value because we've invested in the properties that have caused their assessment to go up. So this wouldn't cause this aesthetically. I totally get the point. Like, and I'm sure they do a great job with the aesthetics, the exterior of the building, but we're not increasing the tax value and we're creating literally, we're essentially reimbursing the down payment. So those were, and again, I think that there are multiple ways you can interpret this code, but I wanted to flag those issues for you because they gave me concern.
Okay.
Could we put in a clause that they would have to hold the vehicle for a set amount of time before reselling? Could we put that in place to where they, we give them $75,000 and then they turn around the next month and sell it and take that equity? Could we put in a clause that it has to be held for a certain amount of time, to 2 years, 1 year, whatever it is?
I mean, if they were willing to accept that condition, then we could do it. You could put in a condition that they, refunded the building or the 75 if they sold it within 10. There are probably things that we could do. And again, I just wanted to flag these issues for you so you were aware of them.
I was more comfortable about it hearing that, I mean, there's talk about a 30-day timeline here on fixing the building to be able to occupy, to like getting class back going. I mean, they're losing money any minute that they're down anyway with the lease. So, I mean, I'm a lot more comfortable with their intent to actually fulfill. I would have been a little bit more hesitant initially as well, thinking, well, we're out this money. What's to say, what kind of timeline are we working on to get this fixed? But they have an actual plan that says within 30 days, they're going to be able to do something so that they can start hosting classes and things like that again. So I'm in support of that from that. And I read this pretty black and white that it says that they can use it. Even so much as so as if it was to get an appraisal on something, that they could use this grant for that. So to me, this is, when I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about this, as much as I might have these concerns, or maybe we could ask them to do a clause, but I look at this as it says that they can use it for this. And I mean, we talk about bringing businesses and supporting these small guys. It's time to be about it. So.
And, I read down the list of eligible projects and, what they plan on doing. I mean, it checks a lot of those boxes. As far as, what we consider as eligible projects. I understand that 75 is going directly and pretty much going directly into equity, but I can't see that money not being used going back into this business to keep this business going. And I think it's something Estacada needs to have around, so.
Okay. Billy?
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to just share a couple thoughts that I think the argument could be made that it would increase assessed value in the long term, because as noted, it has 30 years of put off maintenance and care to the building. And so I think it's only going downhill. Maybe somebody else with deeper pockets could buy it and fix it up and then do what? I'm not sure what they do with it. We have been hearing, I will say, I've heard from multiple different areas, different people. They love coming to Estacada. And I think we're seeing that. And it's because of the, there's some vitality going on down here, and they love coming to Estacada. And I think things like this contribute to that, which then encourages other people to invest and develop. So, I mean, that's one positive. And then we did put an option in there. Maybe Peter would want to weigh in on this. If they were agreeable, if we leaned the property for this amount, if it was sold within a certain amount of time, that you could determine how many years, maybe if it's 2 years or 5 years, 10 years, seems that's long-term thinking. But
Don't
I
forget
think
it's tied to my house. So,
I know.
like if I have to pick up my business or my family being homeless, things change.
Yeah. I mean, something could change in the next year and you have to sell it. And that, if that being the case, it's nothing against you, but it seems like the city at that point should have those funds returned to put to another business person. So that's just thoughts.
Good. Charity?
I appreciate Peter bringing up the concerns. I think this would be great for the community, to be quite honest. I think this would improve the downtown core. BJJ is not going anywhere anytime soon. It's just going to continue to grow. I mean, it's like CrossFit, and it's just going to be everywhere. And I think it will improve just the overall appeal to the downtown area. And so I'm in support of this. I have no issues doing like a clause for 2 years or whatever we discuss and decide on. But I think this would be a good thing for that space. I think it would really improve our area and just the vitality down there. And I think it would also be a bit safer. My daughter dances at the dance studio, and when I pick her up, it's not too fun for her to run out to the car sometimes, and it's nighttime. So I think that having just that positive influence in that area would really, that would benefit the other neighboring businesses. So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah, my only concern is the same thing. If something of a major life event happens and then you guys sell the property and then you're taking that equity out, I would be on board with the full 100,000 and then just make it 15,000 goes away every year that you occupy the space. After 5 years, the 75,000 goes away. But if it happened if you sold the building after 1 year, you would repay back 60,000. If it sold after 2 years, you'd repay 45,000 out of the sale, not out of pocket. That'll get you over the hurdle of the financial burden of getting into the space, still leave you with liquid to be able to do the repairs. And then it would help us with, and I'm not so concerned about this project, just going forward on future projects. If someone comes with the same proposal and they see that there's no strings attached to it and they use it to acquire property, then turn around and sell it. It's going to put us in a bad spot, and it's going to hurt the people in the future that want to come in and get help with it. I love everything about the project. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, so Elena and I talked about that before coming in here today. 5 to 10 years feels really long when it's tied to my primary. I would be happy to have it be a 2-year, repayable, and drops 50% first year, full amount after 2 years. Like I would sign that today. If we're talking about, somebody mentioned 10 years, like if we're talking about 10 years, that's a really long time to,
Mhm.
that's a really long time
Yeah.
to say anything like we got kids and.
What
It would
about,
only be if you sold the property, right?
Right.
Is that your understanding?
Yeah, that is my understanding. I understand that if I sold the property, that I would be responsible for repaying the funds,
Mhm,
not the 50-25 part, but the 75 part.
mhm.
Yeah, like I said, Elena and I talked about that before coming in here today, and like I was prepared for this. And I feel like 2 years makes sense for you guys. I feel like it makes sense for me. And ultimately, within the next 2 years, you guys are going to see that building make an amazing transformation. Like we can call it assessed value or not assessed value, but it's about to be pretty cool.
so I think from what I'm hearing, there's some consensus that we'd like to go ahead with this project. I like Mike's idea of the 75 over 5 years. I can see what you're saying, though, 75 over 2 years with 50%. So I think that's up to council to talk through then. Do we have a feeling one way or the other? from that
If it's
standpoint?
going to shorten down to 2 years, I would just say that it's 75,000 repayment within the 2 years, and then after the 2 years, it's forgiven.
Fine,
If that, I'd be okay with that.
agree.
I mean, I'm comfortable with that. I think that protects the asset, and it's more, again, not a shot at you, but it sets a precedence going forward, like you had mentioned, that people can't use us to acquire property and then cash out. So if you're agreeable with that, I'd like that.
Can you come back to me? I'm still thinking.
All right, Sherry, you're good.
I'm
with
good
this?
with that. 2 years
Right,
fine.
Paul, you
I'm good.
Okay, Heidi?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Gary, back to you.
Yeah, I am. I was thinking about 3 years, but, everybody else is on board with 2. And I honestly, I really am okay with 2.
All right, so great. Melanie, do we need to state anything in this to make that so?
There's a motion and had what page it's on, but my computer just restarted.
Mike just restarted.
I've got
too.
it here.
All right,
for it,
Paul,
Paul.
read it.
I move to direct staff to prepare to sign a letter of commitment for a grant reward to the applicant for the redevelopment of 381 South Broadway Street for the amount of $100,000. With these conditions, if the property is sold within 2 years, the grant amount awarded for the city or for the acquisition to be refunded to the city by avenue of a property lien.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second? Karen, let's do a roll call on this.
Yes.
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 You can't
Can't vote on
abstain.
this. So it's so moved.
So I just want a parting comment on this is I am so happy that this is happening because I definitely do not want to see another an empty building in downtown. And I think that this particular business is going to be very good for Estacada for a lot of years. So I'm very happy that this is moving forward.
Parting comment as well. Thank you for coming prepared
thank you.
and for doing your research.
Congratulations.
Yes, thanks, Paris.
Okay, any board members wish to comment before we move out? All right, I will adjourn the Estacada Urban Renewal Agency meeting and we will start the city council. Give us about 5 minutes. Okay, everybody.